Hello, my name is Raj Baxi. I'm a patient with Klinefelter syndrome, diagnosed around about 2008. And during this short presentation, I'm going to talk about my role as a patient in the development of the London Guy's and St Thomas Hospital multidisciplinary team clinic approach for patients with Klinefelter syndrome. Before I continue, I'd just like to acknowledge the co-authors of the report, which is Tet Yap and Fiza Ali, who are key members of the team at the Klinefelter syndrome clinic that I just mentioned. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my own diagnosis, my own experience, and how that helped me to contribute towards giving input and information in the development of the clinic itself. So I was diagnosed again due to fertility testing, and I received a double diagnosis, of course, of a condition that as a patient I've never heard of before. I did have, prior to my diagnosis, some other symptoms of Klinefelter's, being unusually tall for my family, having difficulty managing weight despite being highly active, poor venous return in my lower legs, leg ulcers, and some other undesirable situations, and of course, then diagnosis of infertility. So at the time of my diagnosis, I was unaware of these being symptoms one might associate with the condition, the collection of symptoms. And of course, many patients are in a similar situation to me. There's a great deal of patients that are diagnosed due to fertility testing. And then that double diagnosis can be quite a shock and a challenge to deal with moving forward. So patients in the early days of diagnosis often delay seeking support. I myself was one of those people. It took me about 2 years before I approached the Klinefelter Syndrome Association charity, which I later became a trustee of, and then chair. And I'm now actually much better in a patient support role. I feel my time is used much better rather than being in a strategic position. I help people out, and I'm now formally recognised as an ambassador for the condition by the charity itself. So although the charity did exist when I was diagnosed, and it's now 30 years old, I still found it took me a little while to gain and seek support, not only from the charity and clinicians, but also from a social perspective as a patient. And although there were patient networks available at the time of my diagnosis, they were low level. And since then, I've been very much involved in helping to develop additional peer support amongst patients. As a patient, when I think back to my time of my early diagnosis, I'd often have to take time off work to go to appointments. Sometimes those appointments were far apart because I didn't want to be open with my diagnosis in the early days. I had to find excuses and reasons why I kept having time off work, and going through fertility testing, that in itself is an anxious and stressful time. So it was difficult, but then moving out of that into just general support for Klinefelter's, if there are significant gaps between seeing different specialists, from a patient perspective, the care can feel disjointed, and it can be difficult as a patient to remember what to raise and discuss and to, make the most out of appointments. So having lots of appointments spread out, of course, is very different to the modern method demonstrated by this clinic, which is the multidisciplinary team or MDT approach. So as a patient, I was able to feed in my own experience, and as an ambassador and supporter of others, an advocate of others, I'm also able to help feed other people's experience as well into helping to make the clinic as patient-centric as possible. So patients often don't know where or how to seek support. And of course, people are often private with their diagnosis because of the stigma associated with both fertility and the condition. Because I'm not secretive about my diagnosis, because I'm beyond the age of thinking about starting a family, I've been past that part of my life, I'm now much more open. And I do find that with adults, sometimes it's those that are at the start of the fertility journey who may be less open to being vocal and open to friends and family about their diagnosis. Of course, Google brings up some other interesting and sometimes undesirable views of Klinefelter's as well, and that's why another reason people can be closed to telling others about their diagnosis. So whilst I was chair of the ASA charity, I was approached by Mr. Yap with the view of helping to contribute towards creating this clinic to support patients. And I was really delighted to be able to provide a great opportunity for the clinic to ask patients what they wanted. So we actually run ran an anonymous survey through the patient support group that I run on Facebook, and that enabled patients to answer questions and to give the clinic a good lead and feed of information that people wanted. One thing that many patients voiced they would like to see in the clinic is to meet somebody else with the condition, and that's where I come in. That's my role within the clinic itself. So we all reflected on our own experiences, fed ideas into the formation of the clinic via the clinicians, of course, canvassed opinions of others, and this is an evolving situation. So we, wherever possible, will contribute in other ways as well. If questions arise, we want to look at new ways of doing things. So the clinic commenced in March 2019. It's been very successful and busy. There's been over 120 patients seen to date. It's run typically quarterly. There's 2 clinics, one for adults, a separate one for adolescents, and patients are encouraged to bring somebody with to provide support throughout the day. So my involvement highlighted the need for clear decision pathways, clear information. Many people with Klinefelter's have low-level learning disabilities. They may struggle to read large pieces of text. They may struggle to piece together information. Of course, I think anybody, regardless of Klinefelter or not, from a non-clinical perspective, may struggle to make sense of medical appointments. Also, we highlighted the need for signposting to further support and other aspects that have all been brought into the clinic via the clinicians. Moving forward, we've looked at thromboembolism, which is something I myself has experienced and other patients too, and the impact of COVID. So, this is an evolving and constant dialogue with the patients. So I used to attend the clinic in person, but the pandemic changed things, and now I attend via Zoom. The patients attend in person, but for me, Zoom's a lot easier, no travel and transport and trains and cost and all those type of things. So I talk about my experience of Klinefelter's to get the conversation going. My conversation with them usually is 10 to 20 minutes. Of course, clinical needs come first. So if they get called away for a blood test, I just stand down. But I try and engage with the patient. I find that talking about my own experience is a good way of getting them to open up. Some will discuss fertility, others it will be height, others it will be memory. And we'll all talk about things to give them an opportunity to meet someone else and to see they're not alone on their journey. I also raised their awareness of the KSA charity and the support it offers, and also the patient support groups network I run on Facebook. And there's different groups for different needs. They're all secret and private, which means they can't be searched for. The patient has to be invited or referred by someone else within our trusted network. And this means that only people that are genuinely diagnosed can join the groups, and it's a great place to discuss on a peer level issues with others. And those issues are broad ranging from fertility to, well, anything associated with our condition. I also highlight to the patient the importance of making the most of their appointment, to actually ask questions and to leave with a sense of achievement or accomplishment that they've actually not just sat and listened, but participated in their meeting. So I mentioned we recommend that they take somebody to be a scribe and a supporter. It can be hard to listen and write at the same time. Anyone that's ever studied will know all about that. So I'm encouraging patients to take with them a parent or a partner to support them throughout the meeting. It can be quite emotionally exhausting day as well, to encourage them to ask questions and to be prepared for their meeting rather than walking in with a blank face and sometimes leaving with a sense of not actually being engaged. So the end result of this is there's been excellent feedback from patients. Patients are saying how positive they found the clinic. Of course, the clinicians too will have positive feedback about it too. I've been involved on an ongoing basis throughout from the start to the current date of the clinic. And that's not just in the clinic, but support as well via the website. They have their excellent own website with information about the clinic. You'll find the link on the screen. Also, I want to highlight 2 other website resources. So the clinic I mentioned, the KSA charity, which has a dedicated space for medical professionals. You are very warmly invited to join the charity free of charge to access the patient area and lots of information about the condition, which may be useful to you. And I also have my own website, klinefelter.co.uk, in which I share my experience of having Klinefelter's and some of the resources I've developed over the years. So I hope you found my presentation useful and beneficial. I absolutely sincerely mean, should you wish to contact me, please don't hesitate to do so. either via my own website or the charity or the clinic, and I'll be more than happy to engage in any projects or opportunities that may exist to work with other medical professionals. So thank you for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Bye-bye.